My name is Tracy Parsons. I'm the facilitator of our community coalition. It is a great space to meet and learn and connect with folks in the community like yourselves that are doing great work to make our community be the best place it can be. And our work continues to be in front of us. We have a number of opportunities to address some really, really important issues and needs in our community. My good friend Tracy Days, said, Tracy, I come to those coalition meetings and we really deal with some heavy topics and subjects. So then we put something in place that we called good news. And so we want to start the meeting off with anyone who has some good news they want to share. This can be a testimonial, something that's happened good with a client, something that's happened good for you and the family, something that's happened in the community. No one's jumping out there on the good news, huh? Well, I don't know if any of you heard, my colleague, Rachel Joy, was named the Director of Equity and Engagement for the City of Champaign. And this is a new department that's developed at the city, and really proud and happy for Rachel and for our taking really a bold, necessary step at the city to ensure equity and inclusion and all those critical things are happening on every level and in every space, from contracting to services and supports and building, construction, and all those great things. So that's my good news. Mayor Catherine said yesterday was International Women's Day, right? All right. Okay, so our first thing we're going to talk about today. Did you have good news?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Silver Hearts neighborhood group in Silverwood has a new office, their first office, based on some help they got from the Housing Authority. So, thanks, guys.
All right. Neighborhood strengthening and empowerment. So, last year we heard for the first time our YMCA expanding services and supports to move out into neighborhoods and communities. Y on the Fly, and now the new program coordinator is here to talk about Y on the Fly for 2022. So Capricia, you want to come on up, please?
Just introduce us really fast, and then Caprice is going to do most of the talking. So, Jeff Scott, we decided to go mobile with our YMCA program for kids and families in this community that didn't have access to YMCA programming because of where we are and because of inability to pay. So about 2 years ago, we started this program to develop into this mobile Y on the Fly. So we bought a van. We decided last summer we were going to go into some underserved neighborhoods. Last summer we went into Town Center, Country Brook, Quest Church in Urbana, and Mount Calvary Baptist Church. We were at those 4 sites last summer trying to serve kids and families in ways that they maybe weren't otherwise going to be able to be served. And so we had a great time. Food, fun, lots of different programming, lots of different community partners. We have hired a new director of Y on the Fly. Her name is Capricia Whitaker. Capricia is our, yep, you bet. I'm going to tell you a real quick story, and this is fun stuff. I interviewed Capricia, and she said, hey, you look familiar. And I said, oh, well, I'm not sure where I know you from. And she had a mask on. I had a mask on, of course. And I said, so did you go to Unit 4 schools? I used to be a principal, and shout out to Mike Sitch. There's one of my old students back there. I was like, did you go to Unit 4 schools? And she's like, yeah, I did. And I was like, Carrie Busey? She's like, no. I'm like, Central? She's like, no. I'm like, Southside? She's like, yes. She was one of my 5th grade students at Southside back in the day, and I didn't even know it. So it was, like a match made in heaven. It was perfect. So, but Capricia was actually in one of our communities watching our interactions with kids in her community with Why on the Fly, and she said, I didn't know the YMCA did that kind of stuff for kids like that in our community. And that's our fault, right? That's our issue. That's our problem that we have to solve, and we're trying to. But Capricia said she wanted to be part of something special like that. So she got the job, no problem, right? She was my former student. She wants to be a part of something that's in her community. You're hired. So she's amazing, and I'm going to let her tell you about what we got planned for this summer.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Sorry if I sound a little nasally. I'm kind of under the weather. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. So some topics I'm going to cover today is Why on the Fly, like the overview of us, our areas of focus, what registration information and other logistics look like, additional elements, and what are the next steps for Why on the Fly. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the 5 W's, which is the what, the why, the who, when, and where of Why on the Fly. So what is Why on the Fly? As Jeff said earlier, Why on the Fly is our mobile program, and what we are doing is coming into underserved communities that don't have the ability to come out to the YMCA, whether that's financial reasons, whether that's transportation. We see, you know what? Those individuals can't come out to us. Why don't we come out to them? And boom, Why on the Fly happened. So some things that we provide for our flyers, as we call them, are books, education, physical activities. And this year we're also going to provide our flyers with swim safety lessons, as well as water safety too. So the why of the Why on the Fly program. Why is this something that we need in the community? Why is this something important? Well, it's important because we want to make sure we're inclusive to all children in all communities in Champaign-Urbana. We don't just want to serve kids that are close to the YMCA. We want to be able to serve everyone, and we can't say we're inclusive if we're not showing programs that are inclusive. So our Why on the Fly program is one of those programs that show that we are inclusive to all and not just those individuals that are close to the YMCA. And we want to be able to give all kids a summer camp experience like no other. So just because, your parents may not be able to afford it or transportation, like I was saying earlier, that doesn't mean that those kids can't have that same summer experience. So with Why on the Fly, we want to be able to give all kids that same summer experience, no matter where they live. Okay, so some of the locations that will be at this summer is Town Center Apartments. So this is our second year going there. They were super excited to have us back, so there was no reason why we shouldn't go back. We are also going to Country Brook again, which was our other Champaign location last year. They were also super excited to have us back, so I was like, why not? So we are doing 2 new Urbana locations. So one of them are Ivanhoe Estates. That is a mobile park home right off of Cunningham. It's like in the back in the cut. It took us a minute to find it, but we found it. But they were also super excited to bring us to the community just to have something for their kids to do this summer. And I also want to put out there, we're not just looking to come into these communities, give the kids a nice summer and peace out. No, we're actually looking to impact the kids, impact their families, and impact the communities. So we're just waiting for our 4th location, and hopefully we'll have that locked down soon. So who are our partners? So this year we're going to be partnering with Illinois Master Gardeners 4-H, Unit 4, University of Illinois Police Department, Will TV, Solo Gracia Farm, the University YMCA, as well as Common Ground. And we also have a couple more that I am still meeting with just to solidify some dates and times for the summer, but we got a couple more, so be looking out. And some of our areas of focus, we are doing STEM and STEAM, literacy, vocation, trade, life skills, recreational, nutritional health, and wellness. We're also doing social and emotional learning, food programming, as well as parents' engagement and education. Like I said, we want to make an impact on the kids, the communities, as well as the families. And so this is our meeting community needs from Wild on the Fly. So the YMCA Without Walls, so that is us coming out into those neighborhoods and providing them with programming. Our food program, and that's where we partner with Unit 4, their dietitian, to make sure that we are giving the kids nutritional meals throughout the summer. We are also doing education and reading. Just because it's summertime, we do not want kids to fall short on their education, so we are going to be providing little libraries in 2 of our locations for now, but we will be working on getting all of our locations the little libraries. And then health and aquatic safety, one of our locations for sure, which is Town Center, we will be doing water safety and swim lessons with our kids. We will make sure that parents register their kids first, because we don't just want to have like a pool full of 20 kids. That's not really safe, is it? No. And impact and sustainability. So Wild on the Fly will use a network of volunteers to deliver these critical services through corporate partners, churches, and individuals. We also we're creating a flyer to be passed out and sent out to our different partners. So if there is anyone that they know or anybody or even some of you all that are interested in volunteering with Wild on the Fly this summer, we'll have a flyer going out, hopefully posted up in a lot of different areas so that if that is something that you are interested in, we are more than happy to have you. And registration. So this is a free program for all kids involved. We will mainly be serving the kids in those specific communities, but I am not closed off to, if you stay close to Town Center, that does not mean that you cannot participate if you don't live in there. So as long as you stay within the area, I am totally fine with you bringing your kids there, or if you don't want to bring your kids, they can definitely walk over. That is totally fine too. Volunteer and staffing, all of our volunteers as well as our staff, they go through a background check. So if you have not gone through a background check and you want to be a volunteer, just make sure that is something that you get done, because I'll make sure you get it done. Emergencies and insurance. All individuals involved with Wild on the Fly programming will be covered by YMCA insurance and will supply PPE and first aid equipment. And inclement weather, most activities will be packaged to take home, seeking locations that will allow us to move indoors if possible. With COVID, in some locations opening back up, in some locations not, we may not have that flexibility to move indoors, but we'll also still make sure that we have our activities packaged. And just our additional elements, spreading the word. I use my social media a lot to spread the word of Wild on the Fly. I also have been trying to use our Wild on the Fly Facebook more. So if you're not following or liking, please go and follow and like our Wild on the Fly Facebook. Doing newsletters, emails, blasts, and we're also going to be canvassing our neighborhoods and things like that just to get the word out there more. But also everybody in here, if each person tell 3 people, we gonna get the word out. So let's make that a mission this week. And then next. And thank you.
Thanks, Capricia. She's going to be great. I just want to add a couple things. Number one, we're going to add another van this year. So this year we will have our second van. We are the recipients of the Rotary Action Auctions big fundraiser soon. So we'll be adding another van. So we're doubling the amount of time that we'll have at each site. So we're going to use the same number of sites. We decided not to expand the number of sites, but expand the amount of time we were with kids. So we expanded the amount of time. So we'll have a van at each of those sites every day. So that's going to be great. And the last thing is we are also, the next thing you'll hear from Why on the Fly is coming soon, is that we will have a new after-school site near Country Brook, Gramercy, Centennial neighborhood that will start with housing maybe 20 to 25 kids or so at first, and with some expectation to expand that down the road. But we know that's an area of need for our community, and it's a space where we want to open up a after-school program to support those kids that are on Why on the Fly throughout the summer. So we didn't want to just leave them. The way I say it is, if they get 3 months with Capricia, they're going to have a better summer. If they get 3 years with Capricia year-round, they're going to be better people. So that's what we're going to do.
All right, let's give a round of applause. Thank you. And then I didn't know if we had any just pressing questions for Jeff or Capricia. All right, so we know how to catch up them at the Y. All right, so Dr. Justin Arnold, we're going to bring him up from the Regional Planning Commission. He's one of those folks that moved here during COVID and is making his public appearance here at the Coalition to talk to us about workforce development through the Regional Planning Commission. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks, Tracy, for inviting me here today. I came here about 2 years ago, and it's a great community to be a part of. I'm really happy to be here. Darlene Kleppel has been kind of a great resource for me. She's involved with our Workforce Development Board, and she seems to just have a depth of knowledge. So thank you for being available when I had questions and needed to connect with someone. And Tracy, thanks for connecting with me on these really important issues. It was great to be able to talk with you, and I was able to share the blueprint with our Youth Standing Committee and have kind of a conversation about it. And we'll keep kind of diving into it a bit. You know how when you're younger and they tell you to network? Well, it's been 2 years and I forgot how to network, so I didn't bring any business cards. The Housing Authority Champaign County, I talk to Lily sometimes via email. We're supposed to be connected, so this is my face, and let's get to know each other in the years to come. But I'm here today to talk about the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission and East Central Illinois WorkNet. Most of you probably know what RPC is. It's a planning commission that does economic development, early childhood education, community services, and workforce development. And then you might have driven past the Parkland building on Mattis and seen a sign that says East Central Illinois WorkNet. Well, those two things are connected. Maybe everyone knows that, but in my experience over the past 2 years, most people don't. So I'm just going to kind of talk about it a little bit. Let's see. Well, I'm going to start kind of big picture with the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. What does that mean? WIOA. Everyone kind of hears it. What is it? It's federal legislation for workforce development. It's funding from the Fed that comes to every state. And then the state uses that money in regions. And the funds are allocated in our area to Iroquois County, Ford, Champaign, Douglas, and Pine County. So we have a 5-county workforce development region. Those WIOA funds have come from the Fed to Illinois, to our region for workforce development. RPC is involved because we are the grant administrator for WIOA funds in our area. So when we talk about WIOA Title I B funds, we have the funds to do workforce development, and that's why we want to be connected to the community, because we want to be responsive to what the needs are. You can see that we do serve kind of a larger regional footprint, but obviously Champaign being the metropolitan area, there's a lot of things going on here that we want to be a part of. What WIOA does in part is it funds the One-Stop Center, and that's what East Central Illinois WorkNet Center is. It's where people can come in and they can help, or they can get help with getting a job. So someone walks in the center, they say, I need help. We say, what do you want to do? What does your resume look like? Where do you want to end up at? And we are doing career counseling basically with them when they walk in off the street to talk about, these are the local jobs. Do you need something now? We can get you something now. What barriers do you have to employment? Let's get you connected with maybe adult education or vocational rehab. So the One-Stop Center is a place where anyone can come in off the street and say, I need help with a job. Can you help me? And we're going to help them, and we're going to connect them with community services. We have some partners in that building, the Department of Employment Services, like I said, VR, Parkland Adult Ed, the Housing Authority of Champaign County is actually one of our partners. They're not in that building, but we talk about them when construction comes up or when youth programs come up. I bring you folks up. And it's designed to be a central point of service with universal access for job assistance. So anyone in our community can come in and we're going to help them with job assistance. That's what the WIOA funds are for at the East Central Illinois WorkNet. The other thing that we do is, let's say we're talking with someone and they say, yeah, I need help getting a job, or yeah, help me with a resume, or yeah, help me prep for an interview. But really what I want to do is I want to change careers and I want to go back to school. Well, if they're low income or basic skills deficient, we can enroll them in our program. We'll do a career assessment. We'll talk about local in-demand and growth industries. We'll talk about jobs in those industries, and we'll help them pick a degree or certificate that's going to get them a job in a growth industry in our region. And as they go back to school, we're going to pay their tuition, pay their fees, pay their books. We're going to reimburse them for transportation and for childcare. And the whole time there's going to be a success coach with them that's going to talk to them about how are you doing at school, what's going on in your life, how can we support you in being successful in your job training, and then we want to help them get employed. Eligibility, again, it's low income, so if anyone's received benefits in the past 6 months, SNAP, TANF, SSI, they're going to qualify. If they're basic skills deficient, meaning reading, writing, computer literacy, they're going to qualify for the training services. They're demand driven with the goal of full-time employment. What does that mean? That means that when someone comes and talks to us, we're going to talk to them about local jobs. So jobs that are here that they can get. So if someone wants to be like an astronaut, it's not going to be a good fit for them, but if they want to get a local job, we can help them with that. And then our services are provided to youth, adults, and employers. I'm messing this up. Adult customers. So when we talk to adults, again, that's anyone. If it's a youth, we can serve in this way 16 to 24 if they've dropped out of school. And if it's adult, we can serve anyone that is low income and basic skills deficient and has kind of struggled with a direction. What we've learned and what I've learned is serving folks in poverty is that people, because of trauma and because of their experiences, aren't always fully aware and able to take advantage of the opportunities in the community. So for example, I'm third generation poverty, high school dropout. The way I grew up, the biggest I could dream was working in retail or working in maybe fast food, because that's kind of all I saw, that's all I knew. And the imposter syndrome is real, right? Where everyone else is going to be able to succeed, but I'm not going to be able to succeed. Because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get in that place or go through that door or go down that path. And so what I really try and get our staff to do is talk to people about hope and realize that they've been through trauma and they might not have had been exposed to some of the opportunities locally. And so we really want to take the time to say, these are local employers, these are local industries. Have you ever thought about it? It might take 2 years, but we can get you there. And we want them to have that space to kind of breathe, feel supported, and then make an informed choice. And we talked about already the services that we provide: tuition, fees, books, childcare, coaching, then connection to community resources. And so those are for adults in our region. The youth services that we do is, and we serve employers directly, RPC at East Central Illinois WorkNet. We serve adults directly. The way that we serve youth is by pass-through grants to community organizations. So there's Cunningham Children's Home, there's Dream, there's First Followers, there's a couple other folks that part of their funding is going to come from us. And if they're going to work with us, what we're really looking for is a program that's going to help youth be prepared for employment and for post-secondary education and to be a civic leader. And so we work with them to think about how to be a part of their community through a mentoring program and through training and through support services. As I talked with Tracy about gun violence, the issue seemed really big to me, difficult to wrap my head around and kind of scary. I've worked with foster kids, with dropouts, with people in poverty for 20 years. But when I saw the chart about 50 homicides and 250 shootings, I said that's not something that I'm really familiar with. And he said, read this blueprint and let's have a discussion. So I went into the blueprint, and one of the priorities was youth development. And I said, okay, well, we do youth development. I can wrap my arms around that a little bit. And then it says that some of the root causes of violence are poverty, income inequality, school achievement gaps, lack of opportunity, perceptions of hopelessness. And I thought, where our youth programs are designed to transform the lives of people in poverty through education and through employment, we can increase someone's income by helping them get connected to a in-demand job so they can get out of their situation. We close school achievement gaps through tutoring. We demonstrate and show opportunities in the area. And with hopelessness, we talk about agency, pathways, goals. You can do this, we can support you. And we try and connect that, give them a sense of hope. So because of Tracy, I feel like I understand the issue a little bit more, and there's a place for us to be. And I'm pretty excited to be a part of the solution, and that our youth programs are here to help youth kind of deal with some of these big issues. That's it for me. Justin Arnold, Regional Planning Commission, East Central Illinois, WorkNet. We do workforce development, and it's really good to meet all of you. Thank you, Tracy.
One question I have, do you have a list of employers that hire formerly incarcerated individuals?
We don't have a list. I don't have a list right now. In the past 2 years, what I've done with the reentry population is we reached out to probation to do workshops on site with them about training and job placement. And then I was going to share this for good news, but I didn't want to be presumptuous and stand up. But we've been working with the Department of Corrections for the past 3 months, and we just got it off the ground today that we're going to do orientations with, I think, 5 of the surrounding facilities for the reentry population about when you come home, come to us so we can help you get a job and go back to school. It didn't answer your question, but we are working on the issue. But there's more work to be done, but I don't have a list.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And that's one of the opportunities. We know that we have to identify and find more employers willing to hire those with formerly incarcerated individuals. So can use your help. Yeah, all right. Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Let's give him another round of applause, please. So we're going to move into the next segment. So for a number of years, we've formed a race relations subcommittee, doing that much and needed intentional work of addressing race and race relations and racism and structural and systemic and all of those issues as it relates to race. And we want to tell you a little bit about that work here for just the next couple of moments. We want and need all are invited to participate on the committee. It's a volunteer committee. Folks are committed. We've gone through, thanks to United Way, a strategic plan last year to really focus our work. So we want to show and talk to you a little bit about it. A couple of weeks ago, you all know Karen Sims and Try and the great work she does. She also has a television show on top of all the things that she does. And I happened to catch Joycelyn Landrum Brown and Penny Solskin, who are 2 of the volunteers on our committee, and I just thought this was a dynamic interview, so I wanted to share a little bit of it with you.
That you want to add about this? Start of the race relations subcommittee before, and then my follow-up question would be, what's the hope? What's the point? Why do you think the coalition has a race relations subcommittee? Aren't they just about like youth and community violence? And why would they be talking about race?
Okay. So going back, yes, the Racial Taboo was the film that was shown. I think it was shown in about 18 venues or 15 venues. I think it stopped being shown around about 2018 and 2019, something like that. But the Race Relations Committee, as Joycelyn said, sort of morphed out of that. It started with a few people who had been facilitators, I think. The racial taboo had been shown in churches, it had been shown at Parkland, it had been shown on the campus. So there was a lot of work already being done. So a number of people stayed on for a community conversation, and that became the Race Relations Committee. And I think the beginning of it was really a lot of self-education. Members, obviously the members were enthusiastic to learn more. So they dispersed around the county and further afield. So some people went to the Crossroads training. Some people went to the YMCA and heard Joe Minarik and Professor Joyce Landon Brown speak at the YMCA. Others joined a breakfast club, some joined a book club. So there was a lot of activity going on, but it was decentralized. And I think that Joycelyn is right. Until the pandemic came and the meetings stopped in person, and therefore it became a little bit more complicated. So the assessment that took place focused us much more on some hard talks, on a vision, some statements. We needed courage, we needed honesty, we needed truth, and we were working towards equity. So that is our sort of overall goal. How we're getting there, more detailed, and I'll leave you to ask those questions.
Okay, sounds great. So Joycelyn, can I ask you the follow-up question? So why do you think there is a race relations subcommittee of the coalition? So if I'm out in my house, how do I connect the dots? I'll ask you about racial taboo, but tell me, why do you think the committee exists?
Okay, sorry about my dog.
No, we love that.
So basically, one of the things we realized, and I think it has become apparent, is that people have difficulty talking about race. They have difficulty acknowledging it. And some of the things that we're seeing around the country really attest to that. So what we're trying to do is really create events and programs and provide skills to people to be able to have these difficult conversations about race, racial history, race relations, and all those kinds of things. So that's kind of like has been the goal, aligned with, helping people. So we're planning a lot of different events. Yeah. Did I answer all your questions?
Kind of, sort of. So I'm gonna know more about the committee, but I guess I'm asking you the hard question. So if I am sitting in my living room wondering, why are we talking about race while I think the coalition does a lot of stuff around like youth and community violence? Help me make the connection, right? Like sometimes when you live the connection, you don't understand, like other people don't always get it. So tell me why you're converted.
Okay, well, part of the issue is that racism is one of the root causes in some ways of trauma. And as we're trying to really address trauma, sometimes if people have not dealt with the trauma that they've experienced based on their racial identities or experiences as a racial being in this country and even around the world, we want people to get comfortable to be able to think about race, to understand how it may be impacting their lives or not impacting their lives, and why. Wow. And what is their, like, sometimes with the dominant racial group folks, they don't have to think about themselves as a racial being, but people who are visibly are categorized as racial minorities do have to think about their experiences, and it does impact them. And we want to just honor the fact that while race is a social construction, racism is a lived psychological, economic experience that people have.
Wow. So if I'm correct, and then Penny, I'm going to ask you, what you want folks to know and what draws you to the work is that you're trying to help people feel more connected and open to each other. And you believe that if we can talk about what's difficult, talk about what people see as sort of sometimes divisive or divisions, that maybe then people will be more open and receptive to seeing a neighbor or wondering what's happening in another neighborhood or community group, and not just sort of demonize or pathologize, but actually sort of see neighborhoods and communities in difference from a much more compassionate lens. That is a beautiful vision. Penny, am I missing anything?
It's a wonderful vision, but it's taking us a very long time to get there.
Okay.
And every few decades, there is an eruption in society. And we're going through one, I believe, right now. I've been on the one race, the harmony bandwagon for a long time.
Yeah.
But the fact is that even in our local community, we have a lot of inequality. We have a lot of injustice, and neighbors do not treat people in other areas of our community as being like them. We have too many of the other, and it does lead to trauma. So, and this has been going on for a long time. In the 1960s, there was a lot of movement, but things have deteriorated in many ways. So we have a lot of young people who are feeling disenfranchised. I think they're feeling hopeless. They're feeling despair. And I think a lot of them feel that no one really cares. And after a while in this business, you tend to feel that maybe people don't really care too much. So a lot of that, I think, is trying to work on language and really learning about the lived experiences of people who do not look like myself and do not have the privileges I have. But I would like to be involved and have been involved in trying to promote a more equitable version of Champaign-Urbana than we currently have.
Yeah.
Can I add one?
Yeah, go ahead, please. Yes.
As I think about the ways that people think about talking about race is divisive, and they say, well, let's just pretend like it doesn't exist, or that doesn't work. It's like if you step on some sand and it's there, you can't pretend that it's not there. And particularly for people who have the lived experience of being marginalized as a result of race. So it's very important for us to be able to get comfortable, to learn to talk about it, to understand what our fears are, our emotions around it, what we were taught, and how to unlearn some of that stuff. So those are the issues that we really hope that some of these events and programs are trying to do, is to help people be able to get more comfortable talking about race. One of our colleagues shared with me that when we first started on the race relations, that she couldn't get people in the city to even mention the word race. Mm-hmm. And if it came up, people would be so scared. But now she's feeling like that more people are able to say things and make comments, and they're getting educated on their own, things that they weren't taught in school. And I'm seeing that in our book club, that we're reading a lot of different good books and having conversations around that.
So it seems like it's been life-changing. Am I right? Like, it seems like once you get on this bandwagon, it opens your heart. It makes you more compassionate. It helps you feel more connected to the larger community. So it's like academic and intellectual, but it also seems like your involvement is personal. Am I hearing you correctly?
There's two sides. There's building skills to be able to communicate more effectively in terms of understanding and developing meaningful, authentic relationships. And there's an understanding of the systemic nature of the role, the way that racism and structural racism plays out. So both of those things go hand in hand. Has been in the past a lot of focus on just, I have a Black friend, and so I'm good. Just having one person and being scared of all the rest of them does not mean that you can have meaningful, authentic relationships. So the work that I used to do on intergroup relations, well, I still kind of do it, but I formally did that at the university, was to train people how to facilitate conversations, and also to train people how to be in conversations. So we're not beating up on people, which are some of the reports that we're hearing around the country, that people don't want to They don't want their kids to feel uncomfortable. And I begin to wonder if it's the parents that are really the ones that are uncomfortable when their kids come home and are talking about some of these issues. So I think it's important that we learn how to understand our discomfort around racial differences and to be able to develop skills to be able to communicate with others.
Yeah.
And understand the context and the political, social, economic context in which we are living as it relates to race.
Mm. All right. So, and
Mask or not to mask? That's my question lately. I'm gonna take it off because I'm finding it hard to breathe and talk. The video gave a lot of information, background information on the Race Relations Committee. However, I would like to share with you a couple of the upcoming events and some of the future events that we've got planned. Currently, we're working on sharing Open Wounds. And Open Wounds is a film about Phil Allen's trauma, intergenerational trauma in his family. And this actual documentary was shown last March 17th by CU Tri, and it had a wide range of respondents. What we found is that United Way had a grant, and they were available to make this film continually available till March 11th. That's Friday. So we decided to continue to show this in the community and invite individuals and groups to participate in the showing. So if you have not signed up, the link is there, and I believe the link is also on. Is it on the website? So you can go and sign up until March 11th. After March 11th, the contract expires, and so even though it's a nominal fee, but it's $3.99. So if you have a group or organization that wants to sign up or view it after March 11th, you will need to pay the $3.99 to pay for it. So I'm going to encourage you, if you're here, if you know someone that's here that would like to view it for free, I would do it before Friday. So basically, we've had 208 people sign up so far as of, I think it was last night. And we've got 5 group showings. We're offering is either individuals or groups can sign up. And then we've got some self-reflection questions. And we also have an opportunity if people want to have a facilitated conversation with their group. So we've got 5 showings planned at the United Way, DSC, Urban Rotary, Human Development and Family Studies, the Land of Lincoln Legal Assistance. We also have 6 organizations that promoted it, and they've had individuals sign up through PACE, Carl Community Health Initiative, CCRPC Head Start, Mental Health Board, Big Brothers and Sisters, as well as Community Choices. So you may have gotten a notice from that, but if you haven't and you really are interested in looking at this engaging film, I would encourage you to do that. Also, we sent out an invite inviting individuals and groups to participate. You're looking puzzled. No, sorry, I'm reading your nonverbals. So anyway, there's also, as you can see, a companion book, Open Wounds, that is still available for if you want to have a book study group. So you can contact the United Way to get free copies of those books. And I mentioned that after the 12th is the $3.99. For the future projects, what we like to do with the race relations, I can't do this by myself. So we've got several of my community members here that are on the committee, and we are really partnering with a lot of other folks. So one of the partnerships that we're planning to do or hoping to do is partner with Sam Smith. Many of you know him. He does a lot of work. He works at Cranard, and he's trying to bring some plays that address trauma in terms of youth in the community. So we're partnering with him, or we've been working with him to develop some facilitation and discussion opportunities. So that's going to be a future project after the Open Wounds Room winds up. Also partnering with, I think, Donna Tanner Harold wanted us to have Black mental health serve on the panel. So I'll be doing that. We're going to have that panel at the Mental Health Board, and then maybe in April, she's got some scheduling to work out at Parkland. So that is another crucial element, because trauma and Black mental health and race relations, all those things are connected. So it's important for us to consider those issues. We also plan to do some community-wide facilitator training. And as I mentioned in the video, one of the things that I've done for the last 20 years is do dialogue facilitation training, and we're opening it up to the community now that I'm retired. So that if anybody is wanting, some people have natural good facilitation skills, and we like to invite people. So if you're interested in that, Penny Soskins is willing to take your email so we can get a list of contact information, so that when we do actually plan these facilitation trainings, we can open them up and make sure we send you information on that. And do you have, should I just say Penny? Penny's email is Penny Soskin, but not with the S, because I messed that up last night, at gmail.com. PennySoskin@gmail.com. So if you are interested in learning what we do as facilitation training and a dialogue and using the dialogue process, please contact Penny. And also, Tracy gave an invitation to join. One of the things I would like to also encourage you is that we are open. We are very much interested in anybody being a part of the committee. So we need all the voices, as much input as we can get to make this a broad-based effort. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Joycelyn. And I just wanted to share with you one more community engagement activity. As Joycelyn in the video mentioned, we'd broken our Race Relations Committee up into several action-oriented groups, and I have the pleasure of being on the community engagement group. And so we're looking to facilitate community events and activities and discussions to encourage empathy and challenge indifference. So that comes directly from our charge through our strategic plan. And so part of this, in addition to the facilitation training and the history and understanding the intergenerational trauma and how we got to where we are today, is kind of figuring out how do we move forward. And so Don Lemon has a podcast, Silence is Not an Option. And one of the more powerful ones that we had talked about and listened to as a group is called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And so we will be hosting a community engagement event on Thursday, April 28th at the public library. We've rented both the rooms. This is a save the date, so we'll have a registration link so that we can adequately prepare for food and things like that. But it'll be a chance to listen to the podcast together as we break bread together, and then have some of those conversations about how we can go from learning these things to actually implementing them into actions to be effective anti-racist and to disrupt these systems as we may approach them in our own lives. So just encourage you to be on the lookout for that event and hopefully make it if you are able. So thank you. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry, one more.
She reminded me. The other thing, we have another action group that's really working with the Museum of the Grand Prairie and helping to put together the African American Heritage Trail. If you haven't seen that, I would encourage you to look at that. They've started a website for that, and I don't exactly know where the link is for them to see that. Do you know?
Well, we're going to get those folks here in an upcoming meeting, so
Okay.
we'll get more information. So, those of you that have been around really since the pandemic and the George Floyd incident have heard me get on this soapbox about the impact of race, racism, our history, an open concern that I had at that time would be around the impact that COVID would have on the Black community specifically. And as our data comes out, it is horrific. The impact COVID, our history around race and access and income inequality and poverty and underfunded public housing, under-resourced public services, underperforming schools, lack of opportunity and hopelessness, and easy access to guns has devastated the Black community. I don't want to be alarmist. I don't want to be overly dramatic up here. I'm just being real. And we have to address our race issues in our community. It is critical. So we can't come up here every month and talk about stopping gun violence and how we have to do this if we don't address our historical root causes. I can't be more adamant about the work of the coalition moving in this direction and doing and applying as much pressure as we can do on all of us to disrupt, change, alter the way that we do business in our community. The data is coming out on the impact of our kids in schools. The information is coming out on access to loans and education and information and business opportunities. We got all this federal money in our community, how that's being used, where it's being used at, where it's not being used at, and this information is unacceptable. We can't talk about addressing gun violence if we don't address our history and our issues around race. And so I wanted to be very intentional, very dynamic about this point. We are at a crisis place. We're not going to get into data. We're going to bring the systems over the next couple of months to talk about the impact that it's had on schools, business, housing, health, and it's almost destroyed our Black community. So again, we wanted to put this out and point this very intentionally today as part of our coalition meeting. All right, so moving us forward, we're going to ask our law enforcement leadership to come up. An important part of our meetings is getting a chance to partner and connect with our law enforcement leadership. What we're gonna, ask you all to come on this side. Brian says when we stand in front of the film, we get glare. We wanna do Urbana Police Department last on the updates today.
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll keep it fairly short today, not a ton of updates. Typically, in the months past, I've updated on some of the shooting incidents. That still remains to be one of the main problems, the crimes of violence that we're dealing with. Can you not hear me? There we go. Thank you. We're still dealing with a lot of shooting incidents, 25 so far for this year. So I also want to touch on, or at least note, that we were successful in getting some charges filed on past investigations, homicide investigations from 2019 and 2020. So that just speaks to, even though we are experiencing a record volume of work with understaffed resources, we're still trying to see things through to the most logical conclusion. So a lot of good work still going on. Also wanted to share some of the firearm seizures for the month. 10 firearm seizures for the month of February, and that involved 9 individual arrests for those 10. Also wanted to plug, if I can, Coffee with a Cop, Friday the 11th. It's at 7:30 in the morning over at Cafe Kopi. I was encouraged to see on the agenda today that Chief Seraphin and Tracy will be having a discussion here at the end. I do like that kind of environment where you can actually have a bit more of a conversation rather than a presenter. So I'm encouraged. I want to listen to that. I hope it goes well, and I hope to see some folks out at Coffee with a Cop. So thank you.
Hello again, everyone. Dustin Harmon, Champaign County Sheriff. So we have had 0 shooting incidents in county jurisdiction over the last 30 days. I don't want to jinx myself, but I believe we've had 0 so far this year in Champaign County jurisdiction. we're still working on it. We know it's probably going to pick up as it starts getting warmer and things outside. So we're trying to get ahead of it as much as we can. I wanted to share a little bit of good news. This morning, we had our Coffee with a Cop at Industrial Donut in Savoy. This is the second year we've done it. The first year kind of flopped because of COVID. This year, an excellent experience. We had several people come out and talk with us, and as Tom said, that environment that is non-confrontational, that environment that you can just sit down and get to know deputies a little bit better, and we can get to know you a little bit better. I could not have asked for a better experience, and that's the second Coffee with a Cop I've actually been part of since I've been sheriff, so I don't have a lot to compare it to, but I was ecstatic by the turnout and the conversation that we had this morning. So I encourage everybody to come to Champagne's as well. I know for several months I have been, sorry, I don't mean to be messing on my phone. My notes are on here this time. I've been plugging the Police and Explorer program. We are finally having our first introductory meeting on the 17th of March at ILEAS, which is the 1700 block of East Main Street in Urbana. So this is a youth mentoring program primarily aimed at youth who may be interested in a criminal justice career, but it's something that we've been wanting to do for a while. It's something the Champaign Police Department currently has, and it's really a good opportunity, I think, to mentor youth and really engage youth in a more meaningful way than we've done in the past. And so that's going to be an introductory meeting for parents, guardians, youth who are interested, and kind of give you more information about it. So if you know anybody, it's for those who have graduated the 8th grade up until 20 years old. And so open for anybody who meets that category. I hope you can join us on the 17th at ILEAS in Urbana to learn a little bit more information and kind of see if it's something you'd be interested in or not. That's all I have, so thank you.
Get untwisted here. Hi, everyone. I'm Malice Carey. I'm the Chief of Police at the University of Illinois. So just a few updates from the university. Last weekend, as many of you know, was unofficial weekend, but we're happy to report there were no related issues this weekend as it related to, yes, absolutely. So with that, we're getting back to seeing pre-pandemic activity on campus. So we're seeing a little more demonstrations and such. So we're prepared for that because we want people to express their thoughts peacefully and safely. So we're preparing for that. And with our basketball team, we're preparing for impromptu celebrations. Go Illini, right? We'll prepare for that. So keep on winning. For an update on our co-responder team, our REACH team update, we've been tracking some data since the inception of this pilot program, since the beginning of the fall semester. So our team has responded or co-responded to a little over 172 cases where we've provided some services to those individuals. So we're continuing to collect quantitative data. So I'm hoping to have all that collected for the next meeting so we can share that out to see the progress that our co-responder model is doing to help with the mental health initiative. Our second Social Worker Academy is scheduled for May 23rd. Through the 27th. This will be our second one. We're seeing a lot of interest from local police departments and across the state. And finally, our REACH team is working with our local agencies, Urbana, Rantoul, and Champaign County, in coordination with the state's attorney's office, Rosecrans, Carl, to bring a mental health recovery court to Champaign County. So that's going to help us further our mission to divert people into the mental health care instead of into the criminal justice system. So that's great. That's a great cooperative initiative. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that takes us. So that's it for the U of I.
An incident that occurred at the Red Lion where a young lady was intoxicated and I guess she got into it with a bouncer, and I don't know if he struck her or whatever, but she ended up having some severe injuries behind that. Was that reported?
Yeah, that was reported to Champaign. So Champaign, yes, you saw our officers there were first to respond to assist that lady that was struck. So, but that was actually Champaign jurisdiction.
So there was an incident reported at the Red Lion recently. I'm not quite sure how it grew legs, kind of how it did. I heard multiple different versions of the story out. When we looked into it a little further, the victim in that incident was treated, released at the hospital, nothing serious. So it was a rather minor incident from what I understand in the end. Something blew it out of proportion. I think it grew legs and really ran in the community. So in the end, in my opinion, it was not a significant incident that happened there. Yeah, you're welcome.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Copeman from the Parkland College Police Department. I have a few updates. First off is we didn't have coffee this morning, but we did have an alcohol awareness day. So we got to have a little fun, a little educational fun with the students and staff and visitors. So if you see videos around, that's what it was from. It was all educational fun, but we had a good time with the students and staff, had a course that they could go through, play beer pong with goggles on, but all in all, it was educational about alcohol awareness, which it is that month. We're doing Polar Plunge coming up next weekend, so I don't know if other agencies are doing that, but we're going to participate in that. You'll see me there, so if you're interested in helping with that, jumping with us, come join us. We're all down for that. But it's obviously a fundraiser for Special Olympics of Illinois that has a near and dear place in my heart for that. Also, Parkland Cobras, we're also going to the national tournament for basketball, so if you want to check that out, that's in Danville, so it's close. But absolutely, go Illini, go Cobras, both of those, good support. We appreciate that. And on a more serious note, we at Parkland have been coping with loss, specifically in the Parkland community and the surrounding communities. So if you hear about it, definitely the Counseling Services Department, we've been providing services as well. It was a tight-knit group, and it's hitting the community really hard at Parkland. So thank you for that.
All right, so, we have to do this right. So this is our last meeting with Police Chief Bryant Serapin, and I wanted to publicly thank him for his space and leadership and role he's played as the Chief of Urbana Police. So you've had to navigate as Chief, and we've had those tough, hard, behind-the-scenes conversations and argued and kept coming back and talked through, and just much respect for your leadership and your guidance. You've had to deal with Aaliyah Lewis. You've had to deal with changes to use of force, policies and procedures, the Civilian Review Board and transformation for that, addressing and dealing with police morale issues, what I like to say is really important historical addressing of race and police. You had to lead your department and city of Urbana in those really tough conversations. And again, when we've disagreed or not agreed or continued working, when we were on the same place, you kept coming back. And just much respect for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. I didn't expect that. My name's Bryant Seraphin. I'm the police chief here for the city of Urbana, at least till the end of the month. Couple of quick things I wanted to note. Parkland, I think you guys talked about, Matt, you talked about the Polar Plunge for the Special Olympics. I will run for the for the Special Olympics for their torch run. I do not jump into a lake in the middle of March. So I wish you good luck. I think there's some Urbana folks. I think every year there's a representation of the whole community to do that event. Good news, since we last met, we've only had 3 shootings in Urbana. So, relatively speaking, that's not a horrible thing compared to some of the pace that we have been running at over the last year plus. We have had, unfortunately, a murder this past weekend, and that is still under investigation. That as it was a result of a shooting that murder was. On the positive side, we had a murder. It was a robbery of a rideshare driver back in January after the first of the year, and we have made 3 arrests in that particular event. And the sad part is that the offenders are super young. And so that'll be some of what, that's part of what we do here. So I kind of wanted to mention that real quickly with regards to some of the more somber, the shooting numbers. I am pleased that our Urbana's model for the crisis co-responder team continues to move forward. And that's a follow-up model. I know I've discussed this before, but when officers go out and triage something initially, they can author a report, and then this team goes back out and follows up with them. So that's an effort that we continue to move forward. And that effort will move forward after April 1st under the leadership of Interim Police Chief Rich Searles, who is here today. So if you would, let's just welcome him here. And Rich, do you have a few words you'd like to say?
Good afternoon. Sorry, I can't talk and hold this at the same time, especially since I also have to look at notes. Thank you, Bryant, for sticking around for the past, almost 3 decades. I'm not quite as tenured as Bryant is, but I've been around for about 25 years. One of the things that Bryant talked about was some arrests related to a January homicide. I was in the last coalition meeting that was via Zoom, and Bryant was talking about some of the shooting events we had, and it reminded me that we hadn't shared some other arrests in some other cases, so I jotted some down. There was a murder in June of 21 in the 1400 block of Hill. We made an arrest on that in Arizona. He's waiting extradition back to Illinois if he's not already back. There was a murder in September of 21 in the 1400 block of Ivanhoe Way, and there's been 2 arrests on that, one in Champaign, one in Orlando, Florida. There was another murder on the 29th of December of 21. There's been a total of 3 arrests on that. 2 have been charged with murder, and I believe there's a 3rd that's being charged with a weapons offense. And then, of course, there's the homicide that Chief Serafin was talking about in January. So our detectives and officers have been very, very busy. The pace continues, so just keep those guys and gals in your thoughts and prayers. So thank you very much. I have seen a number of you in the past, and I will see you more in the future. Thank you.
All right, so we created our panel discussion. Yeah, that one's great. Idea. Following our Victory Over Violence town hall, and it's pretty well received. So we would ask you to maybe give us a couple extra minutes past 5 as I kind of talk with Chief Serapin here about some of the things that are happening with police in our community. So I like to use this comparison with police officers and teachers. Both are expressing a feeling of being under attacked, underappreciated, and really struggling, and people are moving away, I hear, from police work, school teachers. And what would you say is, one, the biggest difference between policing today than when you started? And what would you say to someone who you're trying to get involved in policing today?
One of the biggest differences, and I guess there's a couple of bits. There's the obvious one that people talk about with regards to technology and how that's affected. That's a huge difference for us. I like visual aids. So when I first went up to the detectives in June of 1999, there was one cell phone for the detective bureau, and if you were on call, you got to carry this bad boy around. The rest of us all had pagers. So so things like that, things like have indeed changed, and whether it's been body cameras and current cell phones and technology and some of the evidence that we can get for that, or get from those things. One of the things, my visual aids are on here. However, some of the other discussions that we've sort of, as you and I have had some talk about it, is this gun violence and how this sort of permeates, and how sometimes things are different than they were. However, I started in '94, In 91 and 92 was Rodney King and LA riots. So some of what we felt before, there's sort of an ebb and a flow, and it's up and it's down. We had Ferguson in 2014, and these things do impact how police feel. That every day, if you come to work and someone says, "You're not doing a good job," I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like the other. It does make an impact. And it does, and we have to own some of those things. But that's, I guess, one of the things that I see right now is that we're on one of those upticks with that. Now, your question was, how do you get people to? What do you tell somebody, and who wants to get into law enforcement? And I would say, well, there's a variety of different things. It's still a good and noble profession. We need people to treat others with grace and respect. That's one of my, and I think I heard that several times today already in some fashion or another. We need our officers, all officers, not just Urbana, to treat the citizens with grace and respect. And while you might have to have an event that, well, we had to tackle somebody after this particular thing, we still need to pick them up then and treat them with grace and respect after we've taken whatever the necessary action might be. I think it makes people have to think about why they want to do this. It's not easy right now. We have all of the agencies, and I know the police leadership over there, and Sheriff, if you don't mind me saying, we the list for correction officers at the jail is pretty short. I think it's 0. So we need people to do certain types of work. We want them to be motivated to come in. We want people to come in with an attitude of service, and we're making headway, but it is not an easy journey.
You know, I just think about, again, some of those, intentional conversations that we've had as it relates to specifically Black communities and policing, and our issues that we have around trust. Are historical, they're earned, the lack of trust on both sides. And I think we have to acknowledge that. So I was pleased to hear you say the idea of treating everyone with dignity and respect is an important part of this change in policing that we have to have.
Oh, absolutely. I think when you have, everybody comes with certain expectations about situations. You drive up to a traffic light, and if you've got the green light, you're expecting somebody else to stop. It's a very it's a small thing, and we all kind of get that. But people have certain things and theories and thoughts and biases, and we've had training of all different types we do with our officers. But we have to make them aware that you're coming into these things, recognize it, acknowledge it, and make your decisions on the behavior, the case involved, and as objectively as you can. I just think that's something, and I think we have to recognize that. And I think there's a piece of this, as you've said, that has to do with historically. This just didn't happen overnight. And these are things, and I've learned something. I know that Minnie Pearson, I think, is here in the back. I've learned from conversations with her over the years about her experiences and how that impacts her and how she sees and views things, and that we need to be cognizant of those things as we police.
You and I did a WDWS radio show one day, and I gave some examples of the times I've been stopped, and you said, "Yeah, I appreciate your examples. I just wish you hadn't shared the Urbana ones."
Right, and yeah, I mean, I really think that the officers will go in every day and do the best that they can, but we're not perfect.
You've dealt with some very difficult issues as chief in your short tenure. What would you say is the most difficult issue you've had to address? Why do you say that? And then how did you resolve it?
So, well, first of all, I don't know, 3.5 years is about the life of an NFL running back. So I don't know if that's short or long career as a police chief. Clearly, the issues brought up through, as you met, Aaliyah Lewis and George Floyd, and how those things sort of colored policing for us, and how we have to try and be cognizant of those things. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, and all this was done under the umbrella of a pandemic. in January and February of 2020, we were in early meetings, and I know I saw some of my Carl friends here in the back. We were having meetings about what is the impact of this, and then these other issues sort of kicked off. And so now we have to, okay, how are we going to manage all of these particular things? And one of our greatest ways to address some of these issues, especially with leadership of organizations, is to be in the same room, to have a cup of coffee. As she said earlier, to break bread. And all of those things were stripped away as we're trying to navigate very complex issues. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about with this. And how do you talk about race? And how does that fit in? And now we can't even have a real conversation because we're trying to all figure out Zoom for the very first time. And so that really compounded, I think, some of that and slowed, I think, some of the healing and some of the conversations and the relationship building. So those issues, and I think your follow-up was, and how did you resolve it? I don't know that we fully have. I think we're still working on it. That's why I come to Coalition. That's why we have conversations. That's why that's why we continue this sort of work. That's why we look at things like traffic stops. That's why we continue to, we went through this process for our use of force policy. All of those things, it's an ongoing sort of effort, and I don't think you just get to the finish line with this and go, okay, well, we've done that, we're done, we're going back to what we used to do. I think you continue to do that, and you change. I'm not the same guy I was, as I told you the other day. I'm not the same guy I was as when I took this chair 3.5 years ago.
So this idea around police accountability, I think, is at a new level, heightened level of discussion, engagement. I hear the Back to Blue people talk regularly about lack of appreciation for police. On your way out, talk about police accountability. It's happening here locally, it's happening nationally. These are much more intentional discussions than I think we've ever had. What do you think about police accountability today?
First of all, it's necessary. I don't think nobody wants, no police officer I know wants an abusive police officer standing next to them. So I think that's sometimes I think it feels like, or sometimes there's a sense of, well, the cops always want to protect their own and whatnot. One of the things I will tell you is I find this sort of interesting, and this is an observation that I've had for years and years. I was on our local effort on the multi-jurisdictional investigative team, and it's a multi-agency group of officers. Whenever there's an event that occurs where an officer has to use deadly force, then under the umbrella of the state police and detectives from different agencies come together and work on cases. So I know when something were to happen, automatically, police-involved shooting, people immediately, there's one segment that runs over to this corner. The cop did it wrong. And then another group of people run over to that corner, and the cops always did it right. And none of them have investigated anything. They just automatically, I got this. And then what do? We jump on social media. I intentionally do not have a Facebook page, and I don't think I ever need one. And so those things, and so then everybody's temperature goes up through the roof. And so I guess some of the point of that slight rambling is that I think there needs to be accountability. I think it needs to be thoughtful. I think it needs to be proportionate to just what's a big principle when it comes to crime and punishment books is proportionality. And I think sometimes I don't also, just like when someone, a citizen, if you will, makes a misstep, they don't immediately go to prison forever. If we have an officer who makes a mistake in a situation, accountability is one thing, but I think it does need to be proportional. So, I just think if there's understanding and education from both sides on these issues, all of these issues, I think it's super helpful.
I once again want to thank you for your leadership as Chief of Police in Urbana. I hope you stay involved in our community and activity. You've got an important voice to play, and I hope you stay involved. And yeah.
Good. Yes. I'm not running. I'm not going anywhere else immediately. So I don't have a home in Tennessee or Florida or somewhere that I'm off to. But I think there is, I think there's a place for, all of us to continue to stay involved in some fashion, and that's whatever it is. And that'll be one of my final pitches here, is I don't care what it is that you do, what it is that you like to do. When it gets down to all of these different issues, and as you just talked about, I absolutely, positively think everybody should be involved. And I think all of those things are critical. And so if it's coaching basketball, if it's taking scouts camping, if it's working at the Boys and Girls Club or volunteering for the YMCA, any of those things help with the issues that we're having.
Thank you once again. Give me a round of applause, Chief Secretary. All right, so we've got you're getting some stands, man. You're getting some standing up there. Look at that. All right. So I know we want to do information sharing. We don't have a lot of time, but I know Pastor Thomas wants to make a quick announcement. Mayor, come on up if you wanted to say something really quick before everyone gets out of the room.
Thank you. 3 quick things. I wanted to let folks know that the City of Urbana is accepting applications for the second round of funding for youth programming grants. We just awarded $100,000 to, I think, 6 organizations for focusing on youth programming, and there's another $100,000 to be released as well. So if you go to our homepage, there's a link to the application. This is not part of the ARPA funding. This is part of our regular social service funding. And the council and we as a city decided that we wanted to focus on young people. Secondly, we are in the process of deciding our American Rescue Plan allocations. The council has identified 5 broad priority areas, that being affordable and adequate housing, public safety, sustainable infrastructure, economic recovery and development, human rights and social services. So over the next few weeks at each city council meeting, we've set aside a portion of the public input session to get public feedback on helping us narrow down the priorities, as well as identifying specific outcomes that they'd like to see from the ARPA funding. We'll also have an in-person listening session, and next week a survey will go live that we hope anyone who lives, works, studies, visits Urbana will participate in. We're working with the Regional Plan Commission to help us develop our plan for the ARPA allocations. And third, we are just issued a request for qualifications for a team to do a comprehensive public safety review in the city of Urbana. We're looking at everything from policing, how their time is allocated, and all aspects of public safety. And we've set aside approximately $190,000 for that effort, which will also include follow-up implementation. So there's a lot in the works in Urbana right now related to public safety. Just wanted to let you know.
Good afternoon, everyone. After the 40 hours of peace prayer, the city and the county asked the Ministerial Alliance, Interfaith Alliance, et cetera, to be a little bit more hands-on as we engage gun violence. And so the Ministerial Alliance, as part of an effort to do our part, is hosting a conversation around violence. And so this event is called A Conversation with the Black Church, an intimate discussion on faith, community, and violence. This will be held on March 26th from 10 a.m. to noon at the Morning Star Free Will Baptist Church, 1402 West Eade Streets. Now, I recognize the title is Black Church specific, though that is the focus. Everybody is invited. Please come out. We want to hear from you. So the agenda is this. Oftentimes as faith leaders, we go out and tell people what thus saith the Lord, but we ain't asked the people, right? And so in this conversation, it is the time for the community to tell the clergy in the churches directly impacted by violence what you need from us. How can we support? And then we can tell you if it's tangible or not. So I hope you can come out March 26, 10 a.m. to noon.
And that event and lots of others are on the Community Coalition calendar. So if you visit the Champaign County Community Coalition calendar of events, we're gathering lots of community-wide events to share out. So if you want to hear again what that address was, time was, you can find that on our website.
So we are back live. The back tables for flyers and information to share. Peace and love to you all. See you next month. Thank you.